given a thorn in the flesh that he personally refers to as a messenger of Satan to torment him. Mhm. What was this? Many school of thoughts on the same. Some calling unto something that is physical and spiritual, like a physical depravity, sicknesses, different views on this. What did that really mean when Paul said he was given a thorn in the flesh? That he prayed 3 times that it should be taken away, but the only thing that God told him was his grace is sufficient, that God's grace is sufficient for Paul. Second epistle of Corinthians, that is 12, chapter 12, 7 to 10. It's one of the most discussed and debated texts in the writings of Paul. And many people come up with their own understanding on this and different schools of thoughts. I will give my school of thought finally after I've talked about other people's school of thoughts. The key verse in this, Paul writes and says he was given a thorn in the flesh, described as a messenger of Satan to torment him. It was meant to keep him from becoming proud. He prayed 3 times for it to be removed, but God's response was, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weaknesses." That verse carries a lot, and most people will argue with that verse. What did God mean when he told Paul that? That my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weaknesses. What if Paul was a perfect person without any blemish or anything, any toil or any blemish? Paul would have elevated himself to the level of Christ. But God needed something that can keep this guy as per and put him in check. And maybe that is the thorn in the flesh that God gave him. So before we go to what that was, what do you think that thorn in the flesh was? Do you think it was something physical? Maybe an addiction? Do you think it was something spiritual? Maybe something that was tormenting him spiritually? Or what do you really think? Do you think it was a sickness or what was it? Let's talk about this. A thorn in the flesh, as Paul says, as Paul talks about it. Chapter 12 of Second Corinthians, Paul talks about things that he should be boasting of because he has seen things that no man is permitted to speak of. He was caught in heaven and he saw things that no man is permitted to talk of. And because of that, he is supposed to be boasting about those things. But he can't boast of all those things because there's a thorn that was put in his flesh to humble him. So we start from verse 6. Even if I should choose to boast, I will not be a fool because I will be speaking the truth. But I refrain so no one will think more of me than is warranted by what do I do or say, or becoming of these surpassingly great revelations. Therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weaknesses." In weakness. Therefore, Paul says, "Therefore, I will not boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, I am strong." So what was this thorn in the flesh that Paul was talking about? What was he given that Paul was talking about? The key verses in this, as we had said earlier, we're talking about a thorn that he was in the flesh. And Paul himself describes this thorn in the flesh as a messenger from Satan, a messenger of Satan to torment him. And it was meant to keep him from becoming proud because of what he had already seen or known, or the truth that he has about heaven. Then he prayed for times for God to take it away, but the only answer from God was that his grace was sufficient to take Paul through, for God's power is made perfect in his weaknesses. So what did the thorn in the flesh really mean? Scholars argue differently on this. There are those who believe scholars don't agree on one single interpretation. Instead, there are several major interpretations on this. And interpretation number one of all that most scholars agree on is physical illness and disability. Many scholars think Paul suffered from a chronic physical condition, and they're giving common suggestions in relation to eye problem based on Epistle 2, the Galatians, there is chapter 4, 13 to 15. epilepsy or recurring illness, malaria, which they say it was common to the places that Paul went for his missional journeys. Um, then why this view? They say flesh often refers to the physical body. The term thorn suggests persistent pain. Number two, there are people who talk about that thorn in the flesh as consistent persecution that Paul was going through, and the opposition that he used to face wherever he went to preach the gospel. Other strong view is that thorn refers to constant persecution. Examples in Paul's life, they say that beating, imprisonment, rejection. See second epistle of Corinthians, that is chapter 11, 23 to 28. You read it, you'll understand that. And then why this view, messenger of Satan, could refer to human agents opposing him. The Old Testament sometimes uses thorn metaphorically for enemies. So, say because of that, then for us, these are the physical people that are enemies, or people who came in to persecute Paul. And that is the thorn in the flesh that God put unto Paul to do what? To humble him. But to me, that would not be precise to to what we read. I told you I'll give my view on the last thing as the last thing. So number three, there are those who feel that it was a spiritual or physical struggle, and that is where personally I will stand. That will be my school of thought, and that is my school of thought. Some scholars argue it could be an internal struggle, possibilities, temptations, depressions, or emotional distress, inner conflicts, or spiritual burdens that Paul was given. While this view, the language of torment could be mental or spiritual, fits with the broader theme of weakness and dependence on God. And that is why personally I'll go with this. I'll say that was more of a spiritual or physical, psychological struggle, or even a physical struggle that Paul was going through, and that could humble him to know that God doesn't need a perfect person. God doesn't need a person who is perfect to use. He doesn't use people who are perfect. He uses people who have a lot of weaknesses so that the power of God can be made visible from the imperfectness of that person. So as much as God was using Paul the way he was using Paul, that did not mean that Paul was a perfect person. The same way Paul could speak with a lot of authority did not mean that he was a perfect person. There was some that was troubling him. Maybe a temptation, maybe a depression, maybe an addiction that he was going through. But he prayed that God should take him out of that addiction, but God did not. For God wanted his power to be seen and be made perfect in what we call weaknesses. So that when Paul looks at other people who are struggling with different kinds of weaknesses, he won't point a finger unto them because he feels he's so perfect that he has not sinned or done anything wrong. But he will look unto them and see the same way God has been so gracious unto me is the same way God is gracious unto these people, and is really willing to walk along with them and direct them and even forgive their sins if they repent their sins. And that is what was powering Paul to go around the world preaching the gospel. Yeah, I don't know what's your view on that, but that will remain to be my view on now, and that has always been my view. So let's talk about there's school of thought number 4. There are those who believe it was a demonic affliction. A more literal reading of messenger of Satan suggests a direct spiritual attack. While this view, the phrase messenger, Greek angelos, can mean angel or demon, implies on ongoing spiritual assaults. But that has a weakness, because that one cannot be as it is, because Paul delivered a lot of people. Christ Jesus delivered many people who are demon possessed through Paul. Paul, wherever he went for missions, he delivered very many people who were demon possessed. And a demon cannot deliver another demon, or someone who has a demon cannot deliver another demon. That one is again. So I'm not for that school of thought. Scholars will agree on this, on Paul's teaching on what we learn from this story. What Paul meant was that most scholars agree on. It was the thorn in the flesh was allowed by God for a purpose. It was not to torture Paul, but it was for a purpose. And the purpose was to keep Paul humble despite great revelations that he received from God and the great things he had seen in the heavens that he was caught in, and the greater things that God could do through Paul. Paul needed to be humble enough, and the thorn in the flesh was one thing that could humble Paul to that level. And then it showed that God's power works based through human weakness, that we don't need to be perfect for God to work through us. All we just need is to obey what God tells us, and do it as he tells us to do, as he instructs us to do it. That is all that Paul, we are learning from the thorn in Paul's flesh, and Paul praying that it should go away, but God tells him that his grace is sufficient in that matter. So the thing is, have you been going through something? You're so passionate about serving God, and you're really doing it, but still there's that thing that you really wish that God should take away from you, but it's not going away. Maybe an addiction is not going away, it's still with you. As much as you're trying to do your best, you're a pastor, you're serving God, but there's that addiction that keeps on running after you, keeps on following you wherever you go, in everything you do. You pray, you fast, but that thing is not getting away. But still, God is using you mightily in crusades. God is using you mightily in healings, deliverances, and all this. And you're preaching so mightily. God's revelation over your life is so great and mighty that you keep on wondering, why is God doing this to me? Why is God still revealing all this thing to me? Why is God still using me this mightily? On and I'm just that wretched person. There is this inner thing that it's only me who knows what this thing is. There is this thorn in my flesh that no one else knows. I'm the only person who knows. Oh, some people know, but they don't really see it as a thorn in my flesh. But I know this is a thorn in my flesh that no one really looks into. And you feel like, oh, I'm giving up. I don't want to do this. No, don't give up. The grace of God is sufficient for you all through this. And God has to show his power is perfect in your weaknesses. So don't give up. Don't run away. Don't stop doing that ministry because you feel that thing is ruining you. It's a good thing. Talk to God and ask God. Yeah, talk to God and ask God, is this what you really want me to do? Is this what you really want me to go through? If this is the thorn in my flesh, then give me the peace to know that you are with me in these all things, so that I won't give up on you, not serving you because of this stupid idea. So it is what it is. Bible Insights, episode 2. So if you love all this stuff, why can't you subscribe and follow us on all our social media platforms, that every time we pull up such a thing, we have an engagement in the comment section. Engage me in the comment section and tell me what you think that thorn in the flesh meant to Paul. Be back tomorrow, same place, same time, with another one, Biblical Insights. Bye.